This is Sparky 5.5. This is the way it looks when you first open it. There's the menu. There's the desktop switcher. This is the system upgrade. And here's the task manager showing running applications. This is the network manager applet. It works. This is Clipper with a Q. There's nothing on the clipboard right now. This is the indicator for simple screen recorder, which I have running. It does not turn red or anything, it just stays gray. Removable media manager, of course I'm running it from an external hard drive. This 5% refers to the volume of sound, as you can see. This is the clock, and this is the show desktop icon. Now I'm going to change the configuration to my usual, which is more like the original GNOME 2. So I'm going to configure panel, click on that, and I'm going to move it to the top of the desktop. Shows it at the bottom. I'm going to click on top of desktop and it's moved. I'm going to close this. I'm going to right click on the panel again and click on add new panel. This defaults to the bottom, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Now I'm going to go down to widgets on the left here. Nothing is shown. There's nothing on the panel yet. I'm going to click on the plus sign, and plugins opens up. First, I'm going to add the show desktop icon. Click on add widgets and you can see that it appears at the lower left. Then I'm going to click on the spacer and add widget. A little bar appears just to the right of the show desktop icon. Then I'm going to add the task manager. Click on add widget and you can see my open applications appear in the bottom panel. They're also still in the top panel, but I'm going to remove them. Click on spacer again, add widget. Now I'm looking for a workspace switcher. I don't see it. However, it's called a desktop switcher, so I'm going to add that. Click on Add Widget, and then close that. And this is now what I have. Show desktop space task manager space desktop switcher. I can move these things up and down if I want. Click on Close. Now the workspace switcher shows two workspaces. I'm going to try to make that 4, but there doesn't seem to be any way of doing that from configure desktop switcher. So I'm going to close that. So after looking around for a while, I finally found out how to add more desktops. Go to Preferences and then go to OpenBox Configuration Manager. OpenBox is the window manager for this version of LXQt. Go to Desktops, and next to Number of Desktops, click on the plus sign, and each time you click on it, you add an unnamed desktop. So I close that. Now I'm going to go down to Configure Panel and then go down to Widgets, and I'm on the top panel here. I'm going to remove the desktop switcher from that. I'm going to leave Quick Launch in. That's the area where you add launchers. So if you want to add launchers to the panel, you have to have Quick Launch there. I'm going to remove the Task Manager because, of course, I have it at the bottom panel now. I'm going to leave the System Tray. I'm going to remove Show Desktop, which is at the far right there, so that's gone. I have all those things on the bottom panel. I don't need them in both places. So now I'm going to close this. Now I'm going to try to add some launchers to the panel. If I right-click on something, it simply opens. It doesn't add it to the panel. So that didn't work. So I'm going to try to drag it. And that didn't seem to work either. So now I'm going to try to drag it over to that existing launcher so that I'm in the launcher area, and that worked. So you have to drag it to the quick launch area. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the calculator. With the file manager. With the Qt terminal. With pulse audio volume control. With the VLC media player. Now I'm going to go to Preferences again, and this time to LXQt settings, and then to Appearance, and under Widget Style, GTK2 is the default. I'm going to click on BB10 Dark, and I seem to have lost the option to go back. GTK2 is nowhere to be found. So I'm going to click on Fusion, and now I have GTK2 again. So I'm going to go back and select that. Now when I go to Icons Theme, it defaults to ultra flat icons. This is Oxygen. This is default GNOME. You should have seen those before. High Contrast and Adwaita. I'm going to go back to Ultra Flat. Now under LXQt theme, it defaults to Sparky 5. This is Ambience, which has a dark panel. And there's Dark, which is even darker. And Frost, which is dark gray. KD Plasma is light gray. Then there's Light, which is light gray with a little modeling. Sparky, which is also light, and Sparky 5, which is the one it came with, and System. Looks almost the same. I'm going back to Ambience. Now as for fonts, I'm not going to change anything. It uses anti-alias fonts, subpixel anti-aliasing, RGB, font hinting, slight, which is what I would normally choose. So I'm going to leave that the way it is. Under cursor, you have Adwaita, the only one, and in this case it really is the only one, so I'm not going to change that. Now I'm going to right-click on these spacers and click on Configure Spacer. Shows the width as 8 pixels, and under Space Type I'm going to put Invisible. It's only lined, dotted, or invisible. There doesn't seem to be any way of automatically expanding the spacer. I'm going to do the same thing to the right-hand spacer. Make it invisible. Now I'm going to right-click and go to Desktop Preferences. I'm going to change the background color, and I'll select this sort of orangey one here. Now the only way to actually see the background color is to click on Fill with Background Color Only, and click on OK, and there's my chosen color. You could also add photographs, your own, or some from Google Images. Now I'm going to configure the world clock. And I'm going to check Use 12-hour format. That changes immediately. I'm not going to set my time zone right now. Under Date, I'm going to show the date, and I'm going to click on Before as the location, and then check Show Day of Week. So now that's shown immediately. This is the easiest clock to configure that I've encountered yet. Just a few seconds and I have it the way I want it. So now that I have the desktop the way I want it, let me just mention one thing. When you first load the installed system, you get a little dialog box which asks you if you want to upgrade and if you want to load any missing language packs. Be sure you're connected to the internet before you say yes, but I've done this, and once you do it, it disappears and it's removed from the system, so I can't show it to you. However, I did notice that when I wanted to install any missing language packs, the only English option was English GB, which I take to mean English Great Britain, and I had previously selected English US as my language, so I'm not really sure what the fallout from this is. I just wanted to mention it. I've done several upgrades. This came with a kernel 4.18.8. After a few upgrades, it is now kernel 4.18.9, and everything else is equally up to date. LibreOffice is version 6.1.1.1, as far as I know, the very latest version. Firefox is Firefox Quantum 62.0, also the latest that I'm aware of. This is unusual for a Debian-based system because Debian usually comes with Firefox ESR, which is usually a bit behind the latest Quantum version. but this is based on Debian Testing, which is essentially a rolling release. I believe it's updated around once a month or so, perhaps more often, perhaps less often, but it contains almost the latest software, whereas Debian Stable is kind of stale at this point. If I open Synaptic Package Manager and click on repositories, you can take a look at what's actually installed. There are a number of repositories that I'm not using yet, and these are for things which are not normally available in Debian at all. For instance, Google Chrome, Google Earth. Some of these are from Stable, some of these are from SID, and some of these are from Testing. But if you notice the ones that are checked, there's a special SparkyLinux repository. Also the source files for that, and those are from Debian Testing. Then there are a couple of SparkyLinux repositories from Debian Unstable. Here's a special repository for VirtualBox, which isn't checked, but if you install VirtualBox it will be. Here's the Debian Testing main contrib non-free. Also the source file for that, and the Debian Security main contrib non-free and the source file for that, and the Debian Multimedia Testing main non-free. And the current testing version is Buster, but because they use the word testing here rather than Buster, when Buster becomes stable, testing will roll over to the new testing version. Now, what's the difference between this and Ubuntu? Ubuntu uses Debian Testing, but they take a snapshot of Debian Testing at a certain point and freeze Debian Testing, and anything taken from Debian Testing is taken from before that point. And then they recompile some of the software to work especially in Ubuntu. So by the time Ubuntu comes out, it may be a couple of months old, and it will not upgrade when the Debian Testing repositories upgrade. It will stay the same throughout the life cycle of that version of Ubuntu, with some exceptions like Firefox, which is usually updated frequently. So let's take a look at this menu. And the first thing I want to point out is that I really like this menu. It's the application menu. It's very similar to the application menu in KDE Plasma 5. It's a cascading menu, which means that you don't have to scroll up and down all the time as you do with a contained menu. But it also has a search function. So if I want to find Synaptic, I type a few letters and I get Synaptic Package Manager. As far as I know, this menu and the application menu in KDE Plasma are the only two which combine a cascading menu with a search function. However, I want to mention one thing. If I go back into the menu, it keeps that search term available, so I don't get my full list of applications. I just get that one very limited selection. There's a way of dealing with that. Of course, one way is just click on X here, and you'll clear the search term. And when you do that, you get everything. But let me try that again. The other way is to right-click on the menu and click on Configure Application Menu. And there's a box down here, Clear Search Upon Showing Menu. So you want to click on that and close. Now when you click on the menu, you get the full array of applications. And if I start searching again, and I then re-enter the menu, it doesn't preserve that search term, and it's easier to select your other applications. So let's see what's included. Under accessories, you have FeatherPad, which is a text editor, Calculator, PCman FM-Qt file manager, passwords and keys, Clipper with a Q, that's the clipboard tool, Xarchiver, and XFburn. And this seems to come from the XFCE desktop. Under Education, you have LibreOffice Math. Under Graphics, you have Camerama Webcam Viewer, LXimage, which is an image viewer, LibreOffice Draw, Screenshot, and Simple Scan. Under Internet, you have Firefox, HexChat, Pigeon Internet Messenger, Thunderbird, QBitTorrent Client, and UGET, Download Manager. Under Office, you have the full LibreOffice suite, including LibreOffice Base, and you have QPDF View. Now, my experience with QPDF View in the past has been that there are some complex PDF files which it did not open. I don't know whether that's still the case because that was about a year ago, and it's possible that QPDF View has been improved and it now opens those files. But of course, if you have a problem, you can also install another PDF viewer. Under Programming, there's just an icon browser. Under Sound and Video, there's Pulse Audio Volume Control, Radio Tray, Simple Screen Recorder I installed. VLC came by default, XFburn again. Yarok, which is an audio player, and VocoScreen, which is a screencaster. I could have used that to make this video, but I prefer Simple Screen Recorder, so I installed that. Under System Tools, you have AppDots. I'll go back to that. That is a package manager. You have About, SparkyLinux, BleachBit as administrator. Now this is DebitTool package installer. I haven't tried that yet. I assume it's something like GDebi. Disk usage, Live USB creator, QTerminal dropdown, system upgrade tool, time shift. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I don't use that, but it's here. USB disk formatter, UXterm, and Xterm. These are both terminals in addition to the Q terminals. gexec, that's a run command, and QPS, which is a Qt process manager. Under Universal Access, you have the Florence Virtual Keyboard, and of course you can download more accessibility utilities. Under Preferences, you have LXQt settings, and there's a whole series of those in the menu to the right. I'm not going to go over all of them. You have Disk Manager, you have Firewall Configuration, Keyboard and Mouse, LightDM GTK Plus Greeter Settings, Network Connections, OpenBox Configuration Manager, Print Settings, Screensaver, and Synaptic Package Manager. And under About LXQt, you have About LXQt. It gives you a link to the authors. Thanks. Translations. People who translated it into various languages, quite a few. And technical information. This is LXQt version 0.13.0, Qt version 5.11.1. And under leave, you have hibernate, leave, logout, reboot, shutdown, and suspend. And then under lock screen, you have lock screen, and I don't like to lock my screen, so I'm not going to accidentally click on that. But if you want to, if you're working in a general office and you're going away from your desk, you might want to do that. Now, let me take a look at apt-os. I think that's how it's pronounced. And you have to enter your password. As I said, this is a package manager, but it has a limited selection of packages from the Debian repositories and some packages which are not available in the Debian repositories at all. There's also a series of functions here. For instance, you can edit custom repositories, edit the main repository, fix broken packages by app, install or reinstall deb packages from a local disk, install packages from a repository, refresh package list, remove non-free packages. They're usually installed by default. Remove old deb packages, remove package from system, remove unnecessary packages, safely upgrade the system, and upgrade the system. I haven't looked into what the differences are, but there are obviously differences. Then under codecs, it gives you a selection of codecs. I believe most of these are already installed, but there may be a few that are not installed. And if you can't find them already installed and you want them, here's a good place to get them. Under audio, it gives you a series of audio applications. It has a lot that I don't use, and it omits some that I do use, so I probably wouldn't go there. And under video, you have GNOME MPV player, KM player, Kodi, a whole variety of things. Vocal screen is already installed, VLC is already installed. Under desktop, you have other desktops. Personally, I would not install other desktops. I don't like to run more than one desktop per installation because often the menus get downloaded with duplicate entries. But if you want other desktops, here you can get them. Under games, you have quite a few games. I might point out especially you have Steam, which will allow you to install other games. Under Office, you have Abbey Word, which I don't like because it already has LibreOffice installed. I would leave that. But some people like Abbey Word. If you do, use it. Calibre, which is an ebook manager. Calligra, which is a graphic art and office suite by KDE. Comics Events, that's another PDF viewer. If QPDF view doesn't work, you might try this one. You have a gedit, a whole series of things. Gnumeric, I don't like that either. I prefer LibreOffice. But again, they're here if you want them. This one you have to scroll down. It has WPS Office for those who prefer that. I don't. Under graphics, again, you have a whole series of applications. This is not all of the applications in the repository, but a pretty large selection. And you have GIMP. Let me try installing GIMP and see what happens. I think you have to double click. Should I install the package you have chosen? Install. Opens up the apt-get function in a little tiny terminal with little tiny text. And do I want to continue? Yes. Press enter. been successfully installed. That was quite fast, actually. And if I go down here to graphics, I now have GIMP. And it's version 2.10, the latest version that I'm aware of. And this opens up in a single window mode. You also have the 3-window mode if you prefer it. You can simply uncheck single window mode. But I'm not going to discuss it. It doesn't seem to have any icons for closing it. So I'll select File, Quit. Again, you have to scroll down to see all of these. Under Web, it has Chromium, Conqueror, etc., etc. One thing that I really like is that it has Google Chrome and Google Earth. And now neither of those are available in the Debian repositories, but you have those special repositories that I showed you earlier. And so you can get Google Chrome or Google Earth from here. Under IM, I'm not sure what IM is. I think it stands for Internet Messaging. And then under email, you have Alpine, Claus Mail, Evolution, Gary K Mail, Mutt, Sylpheed, Thunderbird, and Troita. It has Thunderbird installed, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. Under RSS, you have a number of RSS feed utilities. Under file transfer, it has a number of file transfer utilities. I want to point out that Deluge is available. It's not installed, but Deluge is my favorite BitTorrent client. Under security, it has ClamTK, Firewall Builder, GTOM, GUFW, whatever that is, PuTTY, I don't know what that is, connect to an SSH server, Remina, Remote Desktop Client, TeamViewer, Tor, VeraCrypt, and ZuluCrypt. Under System, has a lot of things I never heard of. AQEMU. QEMU, I'm familiar with. AQEMU, I'm not. It's a front end for QEMU and KVM. You have BleachBit. I believe that's installed. Clonezilla, the DebiTool package installer for installing Debian packages. Eraser, which permanently erases files and directly, normally they're just marked deleted, they aren't actually erased. Etcher, which is for flashing images to SD cards and USB drives. Flatpak, for deploying Flatpak apps. Here's installed Debian kernel. I'm not sure how that differs from the kernel I have installed, so I'm not going to do anything there. Install language packages. I've been through that, but I might visit that again. Install LXQt kernel. That's a special kernel. Install the latest Sparky kernel. So you've got a Debian kernel, a LXQt kernel, and a Sparky kernel. I'm not going to do anything. It has a live USB creator. Lucky Backup, I haven't tried it. MintStick, USB image writer. NetData, which is real-time charts for image monitoring. Haven't tried that. NVIDIA settings, in case you have NVIDIA graphics cards. Remove old system kernel. Snapd. This is something you would need to install if you want to install snaps on your system. This is the Sparky backup system. I haven't explored that. Timeshift, which I've already said I don't like. USB disk formatter, VirtualBox, VMware Player Installer, Vulkan utilities, I don't know what they are, but there they are. WebMin, it's a web-based administration interface for Unix systems. Whoa USB, create Windows USB stick installer from a real Windows DVD or an image. So that's apt-us. And of course you have Synaptic Package Manager if you want to have access to all of the applications in the Debian and other installed repositories. I use the free utility to check the free memory with just the desktop operating before I started Simple Screen Recorder, and as you can see, it's used 349 megabytes. That's probably not quite as light as LXDE, but it's probably slightly lighter than XFCE or Mate. The only thing it doesn't have that I wish it had and that I wish LXDE had was Windows Snap. Otherwise, it does just about anything I would want a system to do. Now, I've tried LXQt versions 0.11 and 0.12 previously, but this is the first time I've tried version 0.13, and I was impressed with its performance. As far as SparkyLinux is concerned, I love the fact that it's a rolling release and has the latest software and that it's based on Debian rather than Ubuntu. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.